Hi everyone, Scaragles. In this episode of for my YouTube channel, I am presenting a black powder 15mm scenario for the Battle of Lincelles in 1793, which involves the British Guards Brigade attacking 3 times their own numbers of French Revolutionaries. First, a bit on the campaign background, and the first thing I need to say is that although the battle honour is spelt with a C, Lincelles, the actual place name has always been spelt with an S, and this relates to an anomaly between various contemporary maps of the area used by the different combatants. Anyway, in August 1793, the Allies had just taken the fortress of Valenciennes, just inside the French border, and they were faced with a choice as to what to do. Paris was only 126 miles away, and obviously the total war philosophy would have led them to march directly on Paris. However, the British government wanted the Duke of York to attack Dunkirk on the coast, which had always been a desired outcome of the campaign. And the Austrians, their allies, preferred to attack another fortress, Le Quesnoy. And so the Duke of York marched from Valenciennes towards the coast, and on the 18th of August they were close to the little village of Lincelles. In the early morning of the 18th, as the Duke of York marched to Menin, the Prince of Orange with his Dutch forces used the support of the Duke of York to attack the French outposts, which were under the command of future Marshal MacDonald, and occupied the 2 little posts of Le Blétan and Lincelles. And the attack at dawn was successful in driving off the inferior French outposts. However, in the afternoon, another future French Marshal, General Division Jourdan, along with MacDonald and Bayrou, decided that they would attack the villages of Lincelles and Le Blétan with their forces and drive off the Dutch, which they successfully did. The Dutch commander at Lincelles, who was mortally wounded that day, sent off a request to Menin for reinforcements to help them hold back the large numbers of French that were coming his way. And as a result, the Prince of Orange asked the Duke of York for support, and the Duke of York sent the brigade of guards to Lincelles to retake it. So now the French order of battle for the fight in the evening at Lincelles. General Division Jourdan led the troops, and in total he had about 9 battalions of infantry. They had also a half company of artillerie légère or horse artillery, plus some battalion guns. The troops had been reinforced by 2 small detachments, the Légion Franche Étrangère and the Légion Belge. Altogether there were 5,000 men and 11 to 14 guns. However, that's not the whole story. Jourdan had a great deal of trouble getting his men to face the British, as they were far too busy looting the houses in the village. And so, to determine which battalions were actually available for the defence, I rolled a d6 for each battalion, and on a score of 1 or 2 the unit remained in the village. And then on each move that followed, the lost units could roll a further d6, and on a score of 6 could deploy out of the village and receive orders as normal. So in this particular game, the looters, as I termed them, turned out to be these 3 battalions from Jourdan's brigade, the 5th Verge, the 10th Paris Volunteers and the 1st Allier Volunteers, and the 10th Soigneurs Volunteers and the combined Tirailleurs from Barreu's brigade. So the British order of battle is much simpler. Major General Gerard Lake, who'd served in the American Revolutionary War, had 3 battalions of guards, the 1st Foot Guards, the Coldstream Guards and the 3rd Foot Guards, later the Scots Guards, and these each had 2 6-pounder battalion guns with them. So in total he had about 1,300 men and 6 guns. So a bit about the troop profiles. There's obviously a big difference in quality and experience between the 2 sides, and to reflect that I reduced the French close combat and shooting scores by 1 and made their morale save 5+ rather than 4+. They were also unreliable. 2 of the battalions were large in size, and some had battalion guns, and there was a horse artillery half company, which I gave the 3-2-1 scores to. And the fortifications that the French had, I gave a +1 morale save to. The British, I improved their close combat scores from 6 to 7, and their morale save from 4+ to 3+. And also made them elite 3+, reliable, and gave them first fire. The 3rd Foot Guards were large. The numbers at the bottom, for those who are interested in points, show that the difference in the profiles meant that while the French were outnumbered the British 3-1 in numbers, that wasn't reflected in the point scores, 550 versus just under 400. Another feature of the French armies of this time were the attachment of these representatives of the people from the National Convention, and these are civilians. René Levasseur was a surgeon by training, but he had been attached and came with Jourdan to observe the sacred fire in the soul of the French soldier and help them. He actually did well on the day. He showed significant bravery according to observers, and so one feature added to the game was to attach him to a unit, any unit, and with a command test, a straight command test of 7. If he succeeded, he gave that unit either terrifying charge in an attack situation or stubborn in a defense situation, showing his inspirational effect. If he failed, there was no effect if he scored 8+. However, if he blundered, he fled the field, and the unit he was with was forced to take a break test. So this adds a little bit of the character of the French Revolutionary armies to the game. So this shows the battlefield map and the deployment. The green areas show orchards that are all hedged enclosures, and there's the odd hedged field as well. There are farms scattered all over the place, but none of them are seen to be tactically significant. The town of Lincelles itself can't be garrisoned. It's full of looters, and you can see the 2 redoubts to the right of Lincelles, which the French can occupy. The guards march on from the top right corner of the battlefield, as it's shown on this map. In terms of victory conditions for the British, it's simple. They either have to capture the redoubts or break both French brigades. On the other side of the coin, all the French have to do is break or shake all three of the British Guards battalions. The Guards fought particularly well on this day, so I've made it a bit more difficult to break them. So here's some photographs of the game, and ringed here is the deployment of the British Foot Guards. The lead battalion is the 1st Foot Guards. In the centre, in their usual place according to normal precedence, is the 3rd Foot Guards, and in the rear is the Coldstream Guards. For the French, ringed here are Beru's command of 3 battalions, and he's put the 4 battalion guns that these battalions had in the redoubt as a position of security, and obviously have supported them both flanks and rear. Meanwhile, Jordan's men are on the right. They have the half company of horse artillery, light artillery in the redoubt, and the 2 battalions of infantry are supporting them. They've already deployed their tirailleurs forward to try and harass the Guards as they come on. We're now at the end of British turn 1, and as you can see here, the 1st Foot Guards have deployed and advanced forward towards the French, while the 3rd Foot Guards have also deployed, as have the 2 of the 3 battalion guns sections. However, the Coldstream Guards have only managed to advance part way along the road and are not yet ready to deploy. In French turn 1, the only action was Jordan sent his tirailleurs forward towards the orchard to try and harass the oncoming British. We're now on to British turn 2, and Lake failed his command role to get the Coldstream Guards to deploy, but due to the free move they were still unable to advance down the road. But that was it for the British. Not a good start. And here's a close-up of the 1st Foot Guards, and their battalion guns opened fire on the nearest French battalion. And although they didn't cause any casualties, they did cause some disorder. And here's a similar close-up of the 3rd Foot Guards contemplating the bean field ahead of them. Moving on to French turn 2, Jordan was singly unsuccessful at getting his tirailleurs to advance further, so he galloped over towards them in order to increase his chances next time. However, on the other flank, the French artillery in the redoubt did manage to cause a casualty onto the 1st Foot Guards. So British turn 3 started much better for Lake and his battalions. The 3rd Foot Guards and the Coldstream Guards advanced towards the enemy, while the 1st Foot Guards held static while the line could be formed. The other deployment was all of the battalion guns were deployed and could be brought to bear. And this had immediate results, with 2 casualties being caused on the 2nd Battalion of Parisian Volunteers. At the start of French turn 3, one of the battalions of looters decided to join the fray, the 10th Paris Volunteers, and they appeared outside the village ready to receive orders next turn. In the command phase, Beru galloped to the 2nd Paris and rallied one of their casualties off, an important feature for any brigade commander. Also in French turn 3, the 4-pounders in the redoubt again opened fire on the 1st Foot Guards and caused another casualty. Meanwhile, on the other flank, Jordan's tirailleurs advanced into the orchard and began to fire on the Coldstream Guards, causing them some disorder. We're now into British turn 4, and the turn started off well with the 3rd Foot Guards advancing through the difficult terrain of the Beanfield towards the French. Meanwhile, Lake had a difficult decision to make, because he could either advance the 1st Foot Guards or rally one of their 2 casualties off. And as their stamina is only 3, he chose to rally a casualty off the battalion. Meanwhile, the Coldstream Guards had not been doing very well, and they'd failed, despite their elite 3+, to rally off the disorder that the skirmishers had placed on them. So they were stuck stationary throughout the move. So this is an overview of the battlefield at the start of French turn 4. The French are quite happily sitting around their redoubts in a defensive posture. On their right, the tirailleurs in the orchard continued their good fortune against the Coldstream Guards, causing them a casualty. Meanwhile, in the centre, the 3rd Foot Guards came under fire from all of the French artillery and were disordered and lost 2 casualties. We're now on British turn 5, and the bad luck for Lake and his men continued as the 3rd Foot Guards failed to rally off the disorder despite their 3+ elite status. The Foot Guards advanced with their battalion guns on the 2nd Battalion of the Paris Volunteers and took them under fire. And this resulted in the battalion being shaken. And this shows an overview of the British attack, which is not exactly the most coordinated at the moment, with the 3 battalions too far apart. So this is now the start of French turn 5, and as you can see on the right of this photograph, the tirailleurs from Beru's brigade have decided they've done enough looting and have deployed outside the village to join the fight. Meanwhile, Jordan has brought forward the 10th Battalion of the Paris Volunteers into the front line alongside their comrades. In the shooting phase, the French have managed to disorder the 1st Foot Guards, which won't help them for the oncoming fight. Now we're on British turn 6, and yet again, for this is the 3rd time this has happened, the 1st Foot Guards have failed on their elite 3+ roll and remained disordered for the rest of the turn. However, their fire and the fire of the battalion guns was enough to force the 2nd Paris Volunteers to retreat in disorder into the orchard. On the British left, the Coldstream Guards finally managed to bring themselves up into line with the other 2 battalions. And in the shooting phase, a casualty was caused on the 1st Battalion, the 47th Regiment of Infantry. And this photograph shows an overview of the British attack as it forms ready to advance on the redoubts. And this chart shows an overview of the battlefield at the beginning of French turn 6. And in this turn, Beru brought forward his tirailleurs to cover the gap left by the retreating Parisian volunteers. On the other wing, the Coldstream Guards were badly hit by the French artillery, suffering 2 casualties. Now moving on to British turn 7, which began by the 1st Foot Guards trying to charge the redoubt. Unfortunately, they were shaken by the closing fire, and in the break test they were forced back 1 move and disordered. In the centre, the 3rd Foot Guards managed to clamber over the hedge and get ready for their next advance in concert with the Coldstream Guards. We're now in French turn 7, and Jordan began the turn by sending the 2nd Battalion of the 12th Regiment of Infantry forward with the Vasseur in tow, leading them on, and they followed that up by the artillery fire, disordering the Coldstream Guards. In the centre, the artillery fire had also disordered the Scots Guards, so very disorganised Guards Brigade at this moment. Also on this turn, Beru moved back into the orchard to rally the 2nd Paris Volunteers in order to bring them back into the fray. So here we are at the beginning of British turn 8, and this is another tale of woe from the British standpoint. At the bottom of the picture you can see the Coldstream Guards again failed to rally off the disorder and could move no further. And at the top of the picture, Lake had no option but to try and rally and succeed in rallying a casualty off the 3rd Foot Guards, so they were no longer shaken. And in the middle, before he'd done that, he'd managed to get the 3rd Foot Guards to advance, but they didn't get enough movement to make contact with the French infantry, and so were stuck a few centimetres short. However, the British artillery managed to disorder the artillery in the northern redoubt for the French, and in fact one of the 4-pounder sections was received a casualty and was shaken. And here you can see a close-up of the 3rd Foot Guards closing on the 1st Battalion 47th Infantry Regiment. Again close, but not close enough, and they're in a danger position because they've got 3 casualties against their stamina of 4. Now at the beginning of French turn 8, and Levasseur has been successful in leading his battalion into the Coldstream Guards, and they charged home. The terrifying charge had no effect on the Coldstreamers, who stood and took the punishment. On the other flank, Beru managed to get the 2nd Parisian Volunteers forward into the front line to confront the 1st Foot Guards. In the centre, the 3rd Foot Guards succumbed to the fire of the artillery and infantry to their front and were subsequently shaken, which was not good because it would prevent them from charging next turn. In the melee that involved the Coldstream Guards ended up disastrously for the Guards battalion. They lost the combat, were shaken in it, and failed their break test and were dispersed. And to make matters worse, the 2nd 12th used their fallback move to line themselves up on the 3rd Foot Guards. We're now in British turn 9, and the first action was the charge of the 1st Foot Guards into the 2nd Parisian Volunteers. And this didn't go so well. In the closing fire, the 1st Foot Guards were shaken, but they passed their break tests. Meanwhile, the supporting artillery took on the French tirailleurs, caused a casualty and disordered them. In the centre, the fire of the 3rd Foot Guards was enough to drive back the 1st Battalion of the 47th Infantry Regiment, having shaken them. French turn 9 began badly for the 3rd Foot Guards. They were charged both to their flank and to their front. Here's a close-up of the action with the 2nd 12th Regiment of Infantry and Levasseur charging the flank, with the 10th Parisians charging the front. However, the Foot Guards fought valiantly, and the combat ended up as a draw, with the 10th Parisians forced back to retreat as a result of their break test, and the 3rd Foot Guards were able to turn to face the 2nd 12th. Meanwhile, the fight between the 2nd Parisians and the 1st Foot Guards had resulted in a draw with both sides shaken, and unfortunately in the break test the 1st Foot Guards were broken and fled the field. We're now on British turn 10, and this is an overview of the battlefield contracting as it is to the area just in front of the redoubt. The combat between the 3rd Foot Guards and the 2nd 12th was another draw, but this time both sides passed their break test. And we're now in French turn 10, and Jordan has sent the 1st Battalion 45th Infantry Regiment forward to support the 2nd 12th and hopefully drive the remaining Guards Battalion from the field. On French turn 10 also, the combat between the 3rd Foot Guards and the 2nd 12th continued and resulted in another French victory, forcing the Guards back down the slope. Also, Jordan was able to rally the 10th Paris Volunteers, so they were able to rejoin the fight. Finally, on French turn 10, it's worth pointing out at the beginning of the move, Beru's brigade was determined to be broken, with 3 units shaken, and so they were all in retreat back through the village. Now on British turn 11, and the combat with between the 3rd Foot Guards and the 2nd 12th continued, but this time was a victory for the 3rd Foot Guards, and the 2nd 12th were broken in their subsequent break test, and so that left the 3rd Foot Guards to retire away from the danger and covering the retreat of the fugitives. So obviously that was the end of the scenario. All 3 Guards brigades were either broken, 2 of them were broken, or shaken in the case of the 3rd Foot Guards, and that gave victory to the French. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please look out for my other videos on my YouTube channel, and also look out for my publications, Wellington's First Battle, which is also about the French Revolutionary Wars, Wellington at Bay, which is about the Peninsular War, and also have a chapter in the Hellions' Glorious Fleeting on McCune's division at Salamanca. So as I say, if you've liked this video, please like and subscribe in the normal way. Thank you very much. Hi everyone, it's Gary Wills. In this episode of for my YouTube channel, I am presenting a black powder 15mm scenario for the Battle of Lincelles in 1793, which involves the British Guards Brigade attacking 3 times their own numbers of French revolutionaries.